In this podcast episode, we want to introduce you to our BCEN friend, Shayna Stevens. Michael Dexter and Mark Eggers talk with Shayna about being a trauma nurse and what her role entails. Congratulations to Shayna Stevens for being BCEN's 2022 Distinguished TCRN Award winner. This episode is called Getting to Know BCEN's 2022 Distinguished TCRN Award winner.
Hello and welcome to BCEN and Friends podcast, where we hold interesting conversations about learning with a range of thought leaders, BCEN certification holders, and industry professionals. But most importantly, create value and insight for you, our professional nurses across the emergency spectrum. We hope you find our discussions interesting, informative, sometimes funny, sometimes serious, but always valuable. I am Mark Eggers, Manager of Education Technology Services at BCEN, and one of your hosts for today. I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Dexter, Director of Professional Development at BCEN. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Mark. It's great to be with you today.
Thank you. In this episode of BCEN and Friends, we have Shayna Stevens. Michael, could you tell us a little bit about our BCEN and Friends, Shayna?
Yes, I would be happy to, Mark. Shayna has been a nurse for 20 years. She graduated from Stephen F. Austin State University and currently attends West Texas A&M University for graduate school. She's seeking a master's degree in comprehensive nursing. Shayna has worked as a nurse in ICU step-down, ICU, surgical, dialysis, and most recently, emergency room settings. She is currently a trauma clinician at a level 2 trauma center in Plano, Texas. Shayna has a spouse, Richard, and they've been together for 11 years. They have an amazing group of friends that they love to visit whenever their busy schedule allows. They have 2 dogs and a cat that keep them laughing. Their favorite thing to do is travel, and their last trip was before the pandemic when they visited Costa Rica and loved it. If the pandemic has taught Shayna anything, it is the importance of self-care. If you don't care for yourself, how are you expected to care for anyone else? Her hospital has been very supportive of everyone taking the time to do just that. Shayna, welcome to the BCEN and Friends podcast. It is a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we're very happy to have you. And I know we mentioned a little bit about your career already, but can you tell us a little more about yourself, about your career, and really why you chose the profession of nursing?
So when I was about 6 years old, I had surgery in Dallas at Dallas Children's for a congenital deformity I was born with. And at that time in my life, it was so normalized by my family and medical care team that I didn't know it was abnormal to have surgery on your chest when you were 6 years old. Dallas Children's did such a wonderful time with the engaging and involving the whole family. And I think that's probably where I got my start in being interested in something medical. Years later, I decided nursing would be my choice because it opens up your path to so many different settings. And I really appreciated that fact.
Yeah, that's great. And so you have worked in a number of different settings, dialysis, you worked ICU, step-down areas, and of course in trauma. And, a lot of people think of emergency departments and trauma together, but there's designated trauma centers. Like we mentioned, you work at a level 2 trauma center. And there's a lot of variations between what makes a trauma nurse and then also a general ED nurse. Can you describe your role and what it is that you do on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely. So I am a trauma clinician. I work very closely with the emergency department. When a trauma patient comes in, probably 80 to 90% of the time, they come through the emergency department, typically with EMS. So if it's a big emergency trauma activation, I meet the patient when they arrive. I work with the physicians, my trauma surgeons, emergency room nurses, and other trauma clinicians to get the patient stabilized as fast as possible. Our goal is to get to CT scan within 20 minutes of arrival. I try to expedite that. I help the nurses. We get the patient taken care of as soon as possible. Otherwise, I do a lot of education with the ER nurses, providing them the new employees with our documentation standards as set by the American College of Surgeons to remain a level 2 trauma center. I teach inpatient floors, we teach Stop the Bleed. I also teach TNCC, any kind of trauma education. I really enjoy teaching and helping my coworkers, the community, anyone interested at all in taking care of trauma patients. We offer a lot of different continuing education and community outreach in our department.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I don't think a lot of people understand so many components that go into being a designated trauma center and all of the requirements, both within the hospital and without. And it sounds like you have a lot to keep you busy. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Of course.
So about trauma, and specifically you mentioned education. Shayna, you are a TCRN, you're a certified nurse. So can you tell us a little bit about why you obtained your TCRN and what certification means to you?
So I began my career in the inpatient side. I spent many years in different settings on the inpatient side, and I realized I was getting a little complacent, a little tired, a little burnt out. So I decided to make the jump to emergency nursing, and I was in a level 2 trauma ER, but we also, of course, see all ER patients, and I loved it. I found my passion again. I was happy taking care of patients for 12 hours again, and I hadn't been there in a long time. I figured out along the way over the course of the years that I really enjoyed trauma because it was different. You never know what you're going to get. With a stroke patient, it's always a stroke. With a cardiac patient, it's always a heart problem. But with trauma, you have no idea what's going to come rolling through that door, whether it's a pregnant woman that had a car wreck or a construction worker that fell off a roof. You just don't know. And I loved that. I loved the adrenaline and getting the patient taken care of as quickly as possible. And I also, in our education role, have helped nurses from the emergency room and from the rest of the hospital realize that we do have to work together to provide the very best care for these trauma patients. And sometimes we have different agendas and what us emergency nurses think is important, the inpatient nurses may not think is important, but that we can absolutely work together to provide the very best care. And I just fell in love with trauma, and an opening came up in my trauma department, and I feel like the role was made for me. I love it. It's so much fun.
Okay, thank you. And so did the trauma department encourage you to become board certified to get your TCRN, or is that something you did on your own?
I had been studying for it. I have a pretty bad case of test anxiety, so I had never pulled that trigger and made my appointment. But when I joined the trauma department, we have a really, really great boss that is very empowering to help us reach our goals. And that was one of her goals for me as well, was to pass the TCRN. She takes great pride in the fact that our entire nursing portion of our department is certified. We have 100% certification in our department. And so as the newest employee, I was empowered, not pushed, but empowered to find the right study groups and take the test. And I'm so glad I did. Before I came to trauma department, there was a lot of parts of the TCRN test that I don't know if I would have known about or been as familiar with as after I joined the department. So I love the studying, feeling like I really understand the entire disease process that is trauma.
Great, thank you. So sounds like you had a great mentor in your boss that motivated you to become certified. And so, with that in mind, how do you then give back and motivate others to become certified as well, now that you've achieved that goal?
Well, I do help the emergency room with their engagement. We have a program that does repay you for any certifications. And then we also have a STEP program where you get paid extra dollars per hour for fulfilling certain requirements. And one of those is a certification. So money always talks. And I also help the nurses in the emergency room or anywhere put their portfolio together to present for that extra bit of money. And I really tell them, hey, if I can pass it with this much test anxiety, I know you can too. Let me help you study. Let me show you the way that worked for me. If it doesn't work for you, great, but I'd be glad to help you study, help you organize a study group or whatever it takes, because I feel like it's really important to have a lot of certification throughout the departments, throughout the hospital.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing. So when we look at all of the things you've done, dialysis, ICU, trauma, ER, and then when you're also talking about becoming a certified nurse, and then having to care for the pregnant trauma patient or a patient that fell off a roof, with all of those different avenues of nursing and healthcare, where do you find that it's so valuable, so important to be a lifelong learner? Do you have anything that you use to talk to others about the importance of not only certification, but continuing to educate yourself in your profession?
Well, absolutely. Beside the fact that for our licenses, we have to have a certain amount of continuing education, I feel like the day that you think you know everything is the day that you're going to be shown you don't. And every day I in a perfect world, I could come to work and learn something mind-boggling every day. But this isn't a perfect world, but I do try to reiterate that to the young nurses, that somebody can teach you something every day. That patient maybe has a lesson to teach you, that physician's assistant maybe has a lesson to teach you, and just be open to it. Allow yourself the luxury of learning. I love to be around people because somebody's going to teach me something I didn't know. Some sort of lesson is going to be learned, hopefully for a positive reason.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to Mark. I appreciate you answering my questions. It's been great talking with you, and congratulations again on being the 2022 Distinguished TCRN Award winner. That's a great accomplishment. Mark, I'm going to turn it to you for some more questions.
And Shayna, truly, congratulations on that award. Well deserved.
Thank you.
What I'm going to ask is, tell us about a person or moment in your career that greatly impacted you.
As a new nurse, I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. I didn't think that I was smart enough or good enough to be an ICU nurse or to be an ER nurse. I thought they were the cream of the crop, and you had to really have a lot of experience and really know what was going on to be one of those nurses. I had a manager of a department that I was working in. She was new to management, and she really showed me what a leader is. She encouraged me to grow. She encouraged me to go to school, to try charge, to become an assistant nurse manager, and just having somebody believe in me and always push me to be better, and not so gently sometimes, really, I think impacted my career and made me here at 20 years in still wanting to learn about more disease processes or traumas or whatever the case may be. She really helped me to believe in myself.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Of course.
I'm going to give you now a few rapid fire questions. What would you be doing if you were not in your current role? So did you have another thing you might have wanted to do if you weren't a nurse?
That would probably, I have no idea what my other skills would be. I used to think that I was going to have to switch over to interior design because I just wasn't going to be able to cut it in nursing school. I had zero backup plans. So to be honest, I might be flipping burgers. I really don't know.
That's okay. That's all right. Thank you. Now I'm going to ask you three, what are your favorite questions? So what is your favorite current book?
The book that I'm currently reading, I'm an avid reader, and whatever the book it is that I'm reading is my favorite at that time. I finish it and I move along. I learned to love reading as a young child, and I honestly can't name a favorite. The current one I'm reading is my favorite for today. When I finish it tomorrow, the next one will be my favorite.
Excellent. Great. You're always reading your favorite book. That's
yeah.
Excellent. That's good. How about a favorite movie?
I pondered this one for a while. I don't really have one. I have quite the busy life. To get to sit down and watch TV is a luxury. So unfortunately, I can't bring one to mind right now.
That's all right. And how about a favorite song? Or what's the last song you heard on the radio, or did you remember that you've heard?
We had to do a skit just about an hour ago for nursing administration, and it was Another One Bites the Dust.
There you go. Okay.
We were doing CPR. It was for the beat for CPR.
Okay. How about a comfort food or meal that you enjoy?
Anything that my mom cooks, especially pasta, is a definite comfort food.
How about, and I know you have a busy life and a lot going on, but any time for any hobbies or interests?
Well, like he had said in my introduction, I love to travel. That's what keeps me coming to work every day, is saving money and planning trips. Unfortunately, that's kind of been put by the side, but hopefully in the coming year, we'll be able to get back out there, maybe not internationally, but at least nationally, and get to try some new things, try some new foods, and see some new places.
Any plan that you talked about for this year or next year that you might go?
We may be going to South Carolina soon, hopefully in the summer season, and get to see some beaches.
Good. Excellent. Beautiful. Yeah. Summer's right around the corner. So
it is.
Good. So if our audience would like to follow you online, what social media platforms are you on?
I'm on Facebook under Shayna Stevens, and on Instagram at sstevens143.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. Well, Shayna, I want to take this time to thank you for sharing your time, your stories with us, for coming on this BCEN and Friends podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And to all our listeners, we hope you will stay tuned as we continue on with BCEN and Friends and bring in new and meaningful content and perspectives. If you have a suggestion for an episode, please email us at bcen@bcn.org. I'm Mark Eggers here with Michael Dexter. And on behalf of the entire BCN team, we thank and celebrate you for all that you are doing as professional nurses across the emergency spectrum. Until next time,